Okay, so hello and welcome back to foodierounds.com. Today we're going to go over how I make my mom's gravy. And when we say gravy, it's sort of a South Philadelphia thing. It's what we call pasta sauce, so red sauce. But it's gravy, so that's what I'm going to call it. We're going to start with the garlic. We've got 6 cloves. And we're just going to deal with this the way I did in a previous video. So just sort of smashing them first with the side of the knife. Give it a quick chop. While this is happening, just go ahead and start the stove. I like to put it on medium-high to high just to get the pan hot. It's always taught cold oil, hot pan. Even as I make this, it's a Sunday, and this is, when I was growing up, Sunday was typically when we would run this. You know, we'd have the family over, extended family, grandpop and everybody, and it's a good time. It's just something you grow up with, like everybody grows up with family traditions. We're almost there. If you want to get this as fine as you can, within reason, because, like I said, this is going right in, so somebody can get a bite of this. And you don't want somebody getting a big honking bite of garlic. One thing you can do to help yourself with the fineness is, if you're going to add salt, I add a dash of salt. So, actually, I can do this right now and show you. But a neat trick that a friend of mine told me about: when you're mincing your garlic like that, take a little bit of salt, if you're adding it anyway, and just put it on top of the garlic, and it'll help you create a little paste. The salt sort of draws out the moisture that's in the garlic. Alright, so I'm to a point where I'm happy with it. Missed a little bit there. Make sure you get everything you spent some time chopping on. Alright. So while the pan continues to get hot, what we've got here is 1 can of pureed tomatoes. I like to use the San Marzanos. You can use whatever you want. I think San Marzano tomatoes have a nice rich tomato flavor, and that's what we're going here. And another can of crushed. So you sort of want that texture. If you don't have crushed, you can use whole tomatoes and sort of crunch them up with your hands. You could use fresh tomatoes and do the same thing. I try to stay away from diced just because I don't like the manufactured look of it. It doesn't feel like what I remembered, and this is always what I've gone with. We've got some pepper, we've already added the salt, and we're going to start with some red chili flakes, and they're going to go in the bottom. You can leave them out if you want. My mom was never a fan of spiciness, but I like things a little spicy, so that's going in. And then we've got some oregano, some dried oregano. And of course, the olive oil. A little bit of tomato paste, we'll show you when that goes in. And then basil. When I buy fresh basil, since I know I'm not going to use it, and it's not a plant, I can't leave it on the windowsill, we'll freeze it back. It's going into the gravy, so it doesn't matter if it's sort of dried up or shriveled, but you still get that fresh basil taste. So this becomes a little less scientific. You can see the size of the pot. It's sort of one of the bigger stock pots that I've got for a very small kitchen. I would estimate what I'm giving is somewhere between, you know, like around 3/4 cup. But I like to look for the level in the pan. You want it to climb just a little bit up the sides. So, you let that get in there. And because it's cold oil to a hot pan, you can see as soon as it hits, you sort of see the swirling, and that's good. One way that I check the temperature as soon as it goes in is taking my pepper flake and putting that in now, as much as you want. And put a few dashes. And you want to see those dance. You know, dance around, they'll sort of pop around. And that means your oil's ready to go. So make sure my heat is adjusted a little lower because you don't want to burn the garlic. Burning garlic means starting over. You can't recover from that. So then we're going to take the garlic, put that right in to get that nice sizzle. So start moving that around right away. So right now you're just toasting that garlic, and this is going to be about 30 seconds where you just want to get that smell coming out. You don't want this stuff to brown. I'm going to take my tomato paste because I like to get the heat really to just sort of sear this a little bit. And I'm going to lay about 2-inch long stripes. That's some nice concentrated flavor right there. Again, just sort of mix that around. And now go ahead and add your tomatoes. So that's going to stop the garlic from, frying right away. You can turn your heat down to medium and stir that in. My garlic is a nice color, just a little golden, but definitely not getting towards the brown. It's going to be a nice flavor. Stir this in, make sure it's evenly incorporated. Your oil's going to be separate from the tomatoes as you start this. It's just the way that it goes, and that's sort of why you leave it cooking. This is going to stay on the stove for a while. I would say as short, once we're done adding everything, as short as a half hour, as long as a couple hours, just to let those flavors marry on a nice, gentle simmer. Like you want to see a couple bubbles every now and again coming up. You don't want this thing cooking away. Now, as you can see in the tomato cans, we've got some leftovers. So what I was always taught is a half can of water. You just sort of pour back and forth. So I'm going to go get that. You can see the sauce bubbling. Woo! So we're going to add some of that water right away. Alright, you can see the water picked up the rest of that lovely tomato-ness. We can now put those aside, give it another stir. Now if you want to add fresh tomatoes to this, the more the merrier. The goal is that rich tomatoey flavor. You get the garlic, the smoothness of the olive oil, a little bit of heat from the pepperoncino. I like the texture, because I grew up with it, a puree with crushed. It's just enough of the texture. It's not smooth like a tomato sauce, like a can of tomato sauce that you would buy. Alright. At this point, a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. I like pepper, again, all kinds of pepper, so. That's good for that. Remember that we added our salt with the garlic, so I'm not going to re-salt. Especially since there's also a little bit of salt, I believe, in these. Yeah, just a little bit. Now our oregano. I'd say about 3 shakes around the middle of the pan. You can see sort of how much is there. Again, I don't really measure that. It's just a look. You end up knowing. So you can hear, I don't know if this is picking up on the audio, but a sizzle. So the bottom's going to start bubbling, and that's going to bubble through to the top if you're not careful. So when you hear that, give it a stir. Calm things down. Disperse that heat. Also, it'll mix in your oregano. Alright, I think the last thing we have to do is add our basil. So here's the basil I froze back in a little baggie. going to take 1, 2, 3. Let's go 4. What I like to do is freeze this back in 3 batches, and it'll give you enough for a few servings in each batch that you could just take out after a long day's work. You know, it's just as easy as grabbing it off of the shelf. Put it in the microwave, thaw it out, or thaw it out in a pan or a pot. And, you know, it's just that easy. Do the work on the weekends, enjoy it on the weekdays. So I rolled the basil up. Sort of giving it a little rough chiffonade. And let that unfurl. And you can smell the fresh basil, even though it's been frozen. It's good. Again, this is up to your taste. If you don't like basil that much, don't put that much in, or you could skip it altogether. I would recommend not skipping the basil. Dried basil, if that's what you've got, just go ahead and run with it. Of course, I think fresh is preferred, but nothing wrong. Don't let that stop you from making the recipe, is what I'm saying. Alright. Towel off my hands real quick. Stir in that basil. The only ingredient we have left to add now is thyme. Just have to let this go. So make sure there's no basil on the back of your spoon. Grab a lid. Give it a good cover. Now you're going to come back and watch every now and again just to make sure. I'll leave that out for now. And then we'll come back when it's done.
Hey mambo, mambo Italiano, hey hey mambo, mambo Italiano, go go go. You mixed up a Siciliano, all you Calabrese do the mambo like a crazy with a hey mambo. Don't wanna tarantella, hey hey mambo.
So we're back, and this is it. You can see it bubbling under there. You also might see this juice glass over here. Again, this is one of those imprecise measurement things. But Mom always taught me if you're going to add water, add it a juice glass at a time. So it's this little, I don't know, can't be more than 6 or 8 ounces. Fill it up to about there, so I would say about 6 ounces. And I would add that back in, because if your pot doesn't have a perfect seal, you can see some of the steam coming off. You're losing liquid, you're losing volume. You want to replace that. You don't want to add more, you just want to replace. We'll take this off. Ah, yeah, that's right. So this has been going for about an hour. And I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to tilt in here. Just a nice gentle simmer. And you'll see when I go to stir it, you get that nice chunkiness at the bottom of those crushed tomatoes. And that's what I'm talking about. That's that texture. Stir it, give it a nice little mix. That's it. You still might get a little bit of stranding of the olive oil, and that's good. And I would recommend before you serve it, so we're going to freeze some of this back, I would recommend before you serve it, give another drizzle of olive oil, a little fresh oil. If you have a table oil, you know, one that you don't cook with, like a first press or something like that, give that a little drizzle on top. And that's a nice little fresh olive oil taste. But you'll get that stranding, and it's just natural. But not a lot. And you definitely shouldn't get layering of the oil. Alright, the only other thing to do, and again this is something to do tableside as well, but I always add, and this is what keeps the salt addition at the beginning to a minimum, is to add some cheese. Now this is a Romano. I like Locatelli, so that's what this is. We're just going to add some. Find a nice fine grater setting. Maybe like that side, you know. Just add some of that in. So like I said, we'll add some fresh when it comes time to serve the pasta. But you add a little bit now, it'll be good. Give that a stir. turn it off. So that right there is my recipe for gravy. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you soon.